Over the past 129 glorious years of basketball's existence, only a select group of players, coaches, and teams have impacted the world enough to be inducted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. Out of 180 inductees, only around 110 were actual NBA players. There are also 12 teams in the Hall of Fame, but only one was an actual NBA team. To get inducted into the Hall of Fame, one must have, and I quote, made exceptionally significant contributions to the game of basketball. Well, if you're a millennial like me, you can probably remember the single biggest non-NBA contributor to basketball culture worldwide. A little bit after Jordan, a little bit before LeBron, their name still rings bells. And in this video, I'm going to prove to you why they should be forever cemented into the Basketball Hall of Fame. Who am I referring to? None other than the team from the And1 mixtapes.
And hot sizzle, let's do it hot sizzle, yeah baby, oh baby, that's what I'm talking about, hot sizzle, yeah let's go, right here, hey, there you go, hey,
go get it. Like I said, unless you were living under a rock in the early 2000s, then you remember how lit the And1 mixtapes were. That's not debatable. But before we go any further, let me establish why their team and their key contributors are even eligible to make it into the Hall of Fame. For the sake of comparison, let's look at the Harlem Globetrotters. They're in the Hall of Fame. To be fair, the main reason for their induction was their contributions to improving race relations in the 1940s and 50s. They were the first pro all-black team to defeat a pro all-white team, the Minneapolis Lakers nonetheless, and their success helped usher integration into the NBA in its beginning stages. Super admirable, incredibly deserving of induction, no doubt. Today, the Globetrotters are known for putting on scripted comedy shows, entertaining audiences globally, and doing stuff like this, which is great, but it couldn't be any more different from what the And1 mixtape tour was doing. Keep in mind, to make it into the Basketball Hall of Fame, one must have significantly contributed to the game of basketball. And just like the Globetrotters changed the direction of the game back in the day, the And1 mixtapes undoubtedly changed the direction of the game in the early 2000s and today. And a heck of a lot more positively than you might think. Let's look at the impact that the And1 mixtapes actually had. And let me stress that I'm talking about the players from this movement, not the owners of the marketing team. Yes, the marketing might have been brilliant, but how in the heck can you really strike out when you're working with a group of guys like Shane the Dribbling Machine, the Main Event, and Half Man, Half Amazing? Guys with generational talent and larger-than-life personalities and visions. The core guys from the beginning just wanted to prove that NYC had some of the best talent on the planet, league or no league. So in 1998, And1 distributed 10,000 VHS mixtapes to Foot Action in a pretty nonchalant marketing campaign. Less than 48 hours later, there were no mixtapes left, and the demand for more was higher than Dion Waiters on an airplane. And1 ended up rolling out over 100,000 additional copies of the mixtape Volume 1 that year. With Jordan retiring and an NBA lockout approaching, the And1 Street Ballers saw an opportunity to really break out in a major way. So in the summer of 1999, And1 Mixtape Volume 2 came out. This time they rolled out 200,000 copies. That should have been good for the year, right? They were gone in less than 3 weeks. It was one of the most successful retail marketing campaigns of all time. The Street Ballers propelled And1 from virtually nowhere to second in market share behind Nike, almost overnight. As new mixtapes continued to drop, And1 ascended even higher in popularity when Vince Carter laced up an And1 tight cheese for the now infamous 2000 NBA dunk contest. It was becoming apparent that And1 was now nipping at Nike's heels. At this point, And1 took their invincible streetball team on the road for a nationwide tour. In an effort to keep up, other brands scrambled to copy the success of the Street Ballers. Nike dropped their iconic freestyle commercial in 2001, which was an idea that was clearly greenlighted after the success of the mixtapes. NBA Street came out that year too, another product clearly influenced by And1's success. By 2002, even ESPN took note of the star power these ballers had and produced their own national TV show, Streetball. The show took the entire country by storm and had tens of thousands of kids who otherwise might have never picked up a basketball start working on their game. In a publicized market study that year, Reebok reported that among kids aged 11 through 17 in Houston, Hot Sauce and Main Event had higher name recognition than Steve Francis. By 2003, the And1 Streetball Tour had moved to NBA arenas, which they also sold out. At this point, AND1 wasn't only threatening Nike's popularity, it was also really threatening the NBA's. Let that sink in for just 1 minute. I even remember the GOAT Stephen A saying on SportsCenter that he'd rather watch the Street Ballers than most NBA exhibition games that year. At this time, AND1 hadn't honestly even peaked yet. They added new players like the Professor, arguably the most popular street baller in the world right now, and the Air Up There, the first player to perform a 720 dunk, in game too, I might add. They garnished even more attention from NBA players and from fans worldwide. AND1 video games were dropping. By 2004, the team was touring across the globe and inspiring tens of thousands more people to start playing basketball. At this point, these guys were like a big, pretty freaking huge, large, enormous, big deal. I mean, just look at this. In 2006, AND1 changed ownership, and from what I could gather, it appeared like the new owners didn't really know what they were doing with the street ball campaign. They cut a ton of funding for it and honestly just let the popularity fizzle out. But that doesn't change the fact that by that point, the mixtape team had performed in over 40 countries worldwide. They'd inspired millions of kids to get active and work out, and inspired some of your favorite NBA players to start leveling up. Guys like James Harden, Terry Rozier, and Kyrie Irving have all been very vocal about the influence the AND1 mixtapes had on their games growing up. Jamal Crawford too. Crawford even initially committed to Fresno State because of the influence AND1 legend Skip to My Lou had on his game. While some people, even some of the AND1 guys themselves, might say that they harmed fundamental basketball by commercializing the traveling and the double dribbles for so many years, it's also undeniable that the same entertaining style of play ushered in the current, more free-flowing offensive style that the NBA pushes today. If you look at how the NBA evolved after AND1's popularity, they completely relinquished the handcuffs off their guards and let them run and create like never before. So many of today's NBA stars emulate the moves that you can find back in the street ball tapes. There's no doubt they were influenced. You wonder how many guys use the AND1 mixtapes to get that extra push of motivation to take their game to the next level and make it to the league. Also, even the young kids who watched the mixtapes and went outside and practiced putting the ball in their shirt for 3 hours, well, they still put down the PlayStation controller to go do that, and odds are it made them much bigger basketball fans. I can't even fathom the amount of new basketball fans around the world that became fans just because of AND1. The popularity was massive. The TV show had ESPN's second highest viewership for its original programming next to SportsCenter. If social media was around back in that era, the followings that these guys' individual brands would have had is seriously incalculable. Would have been ridiculous. Speaking as someone whose life was totally changed by the AND1 mixtapes in a really positive way, I'd like to take a moment to say thank you to all the players involved in that movement. You instilled a passion in me in a really young age and inspired me to work on my creativity, my discipline, which allowed me to travel the world and meet a lot of special people that are still in my life today. So thank you. Whether you are persuaded to believe that the AND1 mixtape players deserve a Basketball Hall of Fame induction or not, you can't deny the fact that they entertained and inspired millions, affected the direction in which pro basketball will be played, and made exceptionally significant contributions to the game of basketball. Hate it or love it, induct AND1.